What happens when an artificial intelligence becomes so efficient that it literally breaks the stock market? Just hours ago, Google dropped a bombshell on the hardware industry by unveiling a revolutionary new algorithm called TurboQuant. This was not a flashy new robot or a conversational chatbot designed for casual banter, but rather a masterpiece of pure mathematics. It is an upgrade that reduces the memory usage of large language models by a massive 6 times while delivering up to an 8-fold increase in speed. Most impressively, Google claims they achieved this with zero loss in accuracy. The reaction from the financial world was instant and chaotic. Wall Street appeared to panic as shares of major memory chip makers like Micron plummeted by 10%, while Sandisk dropped 14% almost immediately after the announcement. Investors looked at the math and assumed the worst, fearing that if AI needs 6 times less memory to function, then the demand for memory chips will evaporate. However, this market reaction suggests a fundamental misunderstanding of how technology scales. Today, we are breaking down the TurboQuant breakthrough, why the market completely misread the data, and how a 19th century economic rule called the Jevons Paradox proves that this algorithm is about to ignite the biggest hardware boom we have ever seen. To understand why this is such a massive deal, we have to look at the biggest bottleneck in artificial intelligence right now, which is memory. Whenever you are running an advanced model, it has to store all the context of your request in what is known as a key value cache. As these models get smarter and the context windows get longer, that cache grows exponentially, devouring high bandwidth memory at an unsustainable rate. This is exactly why running state-of-the-art models locally on your phone or laptop has been nearly impossible. Most consumer devices simply do not have the RAM to handle the load. This is where TurboQuant changes the game. According to the research paper released this week, TurboQuant redefines efficiency by mathematically compressing how data is stored. It shrinks the required memory footprint to just 1/6 of its original size. Imagine taking a massive warehouse-sized supercomputer and suddenly realizing you only need a fraction of that space to do the exact same amount of work at 8 times the speed. Because Google claims there is no degradation in intelligence or accuracy, this is a pure efficiency play that removes the physical barriers to entry for high-level computing. But instead of celebrating this efficiency, the companies that manufacture that memory watched their valuations nosedive. Wall Street looked at this and thought that if Google just shrank the memory requirement by 6 times, then chip sales would naturally drop by the same margin. This brings us to the core conflict and why the smartest money in the room is actually buying the dip on these chip stocks right now. They understand a concept called the Jevons Paradox. Back in 1865, an economist named William Stanley Jevons noticed something strange happening with steam engines. Engineers had figured out how to make coal-powered steam engines significantly more efficient. Everyone at the time panicked, assuming that because the engines used less coal to produce the same power, the total demand for coal would plummet. But the exact opposite happened. Because steam engines were now cheaper and more efficient to run, they became viable for thousands of new applications. Coal consumption in Britain actually tripled over the following decades. This is the essence of the paradox, which states that when technological progress increases the efficiency with which a resource is used, the rate of consumption of that resource actually rises because the total utility of the resource has increased. Now apply that logic to Google's TurboQuant. Yes, a single AI model now requires 6 times less memory than it did yesterday. But what happens when running a frontier-level model becomes that cheap and that fast? It means we are no longer confined to running these systems in massive, power-hungry data centers. It means every single smartphone, every laptop, every smartwatch, and every humanoid robot can now run sophisticated intelligence locally without needing a constant connection to the cloud. By making the memory requirement smaller, Google just expanded the total addressable market for AI by billions of devices. Every single one of those devices is still going to need memory chips, and because the software is now more capable, manufacturers will likely pack even more memory into devices to take advantage of the new speed. We are moving from a world where only a few supercomputers can run these models to a world where everything we touch is powered by local intelligence. This has profound implications for the future of robotics and physical AI. Up until today, one of the biggest hurdles in developing robots like Tesla's Optimus or the systems from Figure AI has been compute density. You can only fit so many chips and so much RAM inside the physical frame of a robot before it becomes too heavy, too hot, or drains its battery in minutes. If TurboQuant becomes the industry standard, the physical constraints of robotics are effectively bypassed. A humanoid robot that previously struggled to process complex physical environments because it kept maxing out its onboard memory can now process 8 times the data using 6 times less space. This is the hidden genius of software breakthroughs because they act as an instant free upgrade to existing hardware. This compression means that the humanoid robots rolling off assembly lines this year are going to be significantly smarter and more capable than we anticipated, simply because they can store and recall more operational context without needing a massive physical hardware redesign. So, where does that leave the market? While retail investors were panic selling their shares in Micron and Sandisk, top-tier analysts were already issuing buy ratings. Experts are pointing out that this drop is a massive overreaction based on a surface-level understanding of technology. Micron is currently forecasting revenue growth of over 200% because the baseline demand for AI infrastructure is so high that even a 6-fold increase in efficiency cannot keep up with the global hunger for compute. Google did not kill the memory chip industry. They unlocked the bottleneck that was holding AI back from mass consumer adoption. As the cost to run these models drops, we are going to see an explosion of new agentic workflows, autonomous systems, and edge computing devices that were previously impossible. We are witnessing the transition of artificial intelligence from a luxury service provided by big tech clouds into a fundamental utility that lives locally on every piece of silicon on the planet. The efficiency of TurboQuant is not a threat to hardware, but the very catalyst that will make high-performance hardware mandatory for every consumer product in existence. The era of massive data center reliance is ending as Google's breakthrough pushes the frontier of intelligence directly into the palm of your hand and the sensors of every autonomous machine. Thanks for watching.